Welcome to TV Africa News and thank you for watching. This is Africa Today. My name is Najuma Luima, but first are the headlines. Court rules people's government and people power slogans are legal. MPs task Kasaija on shilling 66 trillion debt burden. World Bank injects US dollars 100 million into troubled northern Mozambique. And in sports, Chetume suspends goalkeeper and defender over alleged match fixing. A warm welcome once again, and now the news in detail. On May 3rd, Uganda will be joining the rest of the world in celebrating the World Press Freedom Day. The day will be used to appreciate the vital role played by the press in the information spectrum. Our reporter Kachanchu has more.
Today, the Uganda Human Rights Commission, together with the United Nations Office Commission for Human Rights in Uganda, the Uganda Journalists Association and other partners have held a joint press conference to flag off commemoration activities for the World Press Freedom Day 2021 at Uganda Human Rights Commission headquarters in Kampala. Addressing the media at the Uganda Human Rights Commission, Dr. Katebalirwe Wairumba condemned the increased brutality against media practitioners while exercising their duties. He said this demoralizes the country's effort to install democracy.
The cases of violations of the rights of journalists in the course of their duty. And the perpetrators to be brought book. The Commission and our partners would like also to note that today's commemoration is happening when a number of measures to address the recent violent clashes witnessed between some errant elements within the security and the journalists. Those measures have been put in place.
The president of the Uganda Journalists Association, Matthias Rukundo, also condemned the actions of security agencies against the members of Uganda Journalists Association and other journalists. The commemoration activities for the World Press Freedom Day 2021 were flagged off officially, which will include joint mindset training for field-based journalists on climate change reporting and a one-day public dialogue in Gulu, Mr. Wairumba clarifies. TV Africa News, Kachanchu Mtabazi reporting.
The Constitutional Court has ruled that the people's government and people power political slogans can continue to be used by Dr. Kizza Besigye and Mr. Robert Kyagulanyi aka Bobi Wine respectively. We have more. The Constitutional Court justices dismissed a petition filed by a concerned lawyer and support of the National Resistance Movement Party, Mr. Eden Zintare Rutaro, against the slogans. The justices reasoned that the petition was filed at a wrong court. In his petition, Mr. Rutaro had contended that Mr. Kyagulanyi and his party spokesperson, Joel Ssenyonyi, in establishing an unregistered political organization under the name of People Power Movement and People Power and interchangeably, and mobilizing political activities and membership with the view of influencing a political agenda was illegal. He said, in a preserve of registered political parties, since we are in a multi-party dispensation, and that their actions contravened the Constitution. But in their defense, Mr. Kyagulanyi and Mr. Ssenyonyi submitted that the petition lacked merit and that what they were doing was to come together in an association with other Ugandans while emphasizing their power as Ugandans under Article 1. Mr. Rutaro had accused Dr. Besigye of running a non-registered political vehicle dubbed People's Government to advance his political activities, which he said was also unconstitutional. Moving on, Finance Minister Matia Kasaija faced a barrage of questions about the country's distressing stock of total public debt that has grown from shillings 46.36 trillion to shillings 66 trillion in less than 2 years.
Members of Parliament on the Budget Committee tasked Mr. Kasaija to explain what went wrong on how he intends to control the government appetite to borrow and bring the country's debt burden back to the convenient levels. The country's public debt is expected to grow to 52% by the end of 2020-2021 financial year, which is way above the 50% threshold that Uganda agreed on with other partner states in the East African region. The MPs, led by their chairperson, Mr. Amos Lugolobi, however, had no kind words for Mr. Kasaija and his colleague, Mr. David Bahati, the Minister for Planning. They demanded for a detailed recovery plan to enable Uganda cure itself from the debt burden. In response, Mr. Kasaija attempted to explain that government will promote production to boost revenue to repay the current debt burden, but the MPs kept interjecting, asking the supplementary questions on the current debt crisis. To reduce borrowing, the minister said government would promote production by improving incentives to manufacturers. On Monday, TV Africa reported that Uganda's total public debt has hit a record 65.82 trillion Ugandan shillings as of December 2020, up from 49 trillion Ugandan shillings in 2019 due to increased government borrowing.
Away from that, the National Curriculum Development Center, NCDC, has started a process to overhaul the higher secondary school curriculum and create one that aligns with the new lower secondary curriculum. We have more. The process is in its early stages to see higher education made more practical and attractive. National Curriculum Center is waiting a go-ahead from the Ministry of Education and Sports. The review was necessitated by the introduction of a new lower secondary school curriculum, which changed the stance from cognitive to competence-based learning and assessment. According to the NCDC, students transiting from the new lower secondary school curriculum cannot join higher education under the current curriculum. The body, which works under the Education Ministry, is mandated to develop educational curricula for primary and secondary institutions. The current higher school education curriculum takes a period of 2 academic years to complete. The curriculum is offered as a set of specialized subject combinations. A learner offers a combination of 3 principal subjects and 2 subsidiary subjects. It leads to the award of the Uganda Advanced Certificate of Education and determines a learner's career path at the university level. The process will start with the countrywide consultation, which will inform the contents of the new curriculum. The Uganda Virus Research Institute has confirmed that the Indian COVID-19 variant is in Kampala. According to officials from the Ministry of Health, the variant, also referred to as B.1.617, was detected from travelers returning from India. The variant was picked up after the travelers went to get tested after they were feeling unwell. The executive director of UVRI, Professor Poncian Caleb, says they have so far identified 1 case but are on the lookout for other cases. Reports already indicate that the country has so far detected over 300 cases of COVID-19 variants from other countries. According to scientists, there are now 6 strains of the disease circulating in the country at the moment, including variants from South Africa, Nigeria, India, and the UK. Dr. Diana Atwine, the permanent secretary at the Ministry of Health, says that they are worried over this new virus in the country since it seems to attack the young people. Let's take a very quick short break. We will be right back. Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, The Right to Know. The first high-profile female genocide suspect Beatrice Munyenyezi, who faces 7 charges relating to the 1994 genocide in Rwanda, has been deported to Rwanda from the United States to appear in court. Rwanda's Investigation Bureau said Beatrice Munyenyezi is suspected of murder as a genocide crime, conspiracy to commit genocide, among others. Other charges are planning of the genocide, complicity in genocide, incitement to commit genocide, extermination, and complicity in rape. Beatrice Munyenyezi's defense lawyer Gatera Gashabana requested for an adjournment of the hearing so that his client can know the content of the file. During the genocide in the now Huye district, Munyenyezi would stand on roadblocks and check identifications to identify Tutsi. The suspect is the wife of Asen Ntahobari, who together with his mother Pauline Nyilamasuhuku were sentenced to life in prison by the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda for their role in the genocide against the Tutsi. The Chadian Transitional Military Council expressed itself for the first time on the demonstrations against the establishment of the military council led by Mahamat Idris Deby, one of the sons of the former Chadian president, killed on 19th April.
According to the spokesman of the Transitional Military Council, General Azem Bamandu, the so-called peaceful transition demonstration paradoxically led to the deliberate destruction of 15 national police vehicles as well as 2 stations belonging to the Total company. He further added that there were intentional assaults on law enforcement officers on mission where a retired policewoman was pulled out of a public transport vehicle to be lynched. The general called on the organizers of demonstrations to discipline their militants and deplore the death of 6 people.
Away from that, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa on Wednesday admitted that the country's ruling party could have done more to halt a state graft under his predecessor, Jacob Zuma. Let's take a look.
During a much anticipated appearance before the judicial panel probing allegations of corruption and fraud under Zuma, Ramaphosa said graft had eroded constitutional values and undermined the rule of law. Ramaphosa told the panel probing alleged state looting that the African National Congress does admit that it made mistakes and was living up to the expectations of the people of South Africa in relation to enforcing accountability. Ramaphosa, the first sitting president to testify in such a probe, appeared in his capacity as the current leader of the African National Congress. Dozens of ministers and former ministers, elected officials, businessmen, and senior civil servants have appeared before the commission.
Let's once again take a very quick short break. We will be right back. Welcome once again. You're still watching TV Africa News, the right to know. In our business news today, the World Bank on Wednesday granted $100 million for an emergency recovery project in northern Mozambique, where hundreds of thousands of people have been displaced by jihadist insurgency.
An agreement for the funding, part of a 3-year $700 million project, was signed by the government and the United Nations Office for Project Services, which oversees the project. President Filipe Nyusi, who attended the signing ceremony in Pemba, the provincial capital, said that despite the pain and sorrow that has characterized the lives of Mozambicans, the agreement would help deal with a humanitarian catastrophe. UNOPS Director for East and Southern Africa, Rainer Frauenfeld, told journalists that the funding enables persistence that goes beyond the pure humanitarian aid that has been provided and that will help with local development like agriculture and infrastructure.
In our health news today, experts are saying that the countries with a higher coronavirus caseload, including India, need to prepare to deal with the long-term effects of the illness in a phenomenon that is being termed as long COVID. Let's have more on this report.
While the immediate impact of the COVID-19 wave on the health system is clearly visible in terms of shortage of oxygen, ICU beds, overstretched testing and treatment services, new studies suggest that another public health sector crisis associated with the long-term effects of the virus could be looming over our heads. Although there is no clear definition of long COVID yet, it is described as a condition where the effects of COVID-19 continue for weeks or months beyond the initial illness. In a separate study made available on the preprint servers, researchers interviewed the parents of 518 children who were admitted to Bashliava Children's Municipal Clinical Hospital in Moscow. 24% of the children reported persistent symptoms even 7 to 9 months after they left the hospital.
And in sports, the management of Uganda Premier League club Chetume Football Club has confirmed the indefinite suspension of two of their players, that is goalkeeper Joel Mutakuwa and defender Julius Ntambi, over alleged match fixing. Our reporter Kachanchu has more.
According to Chetume Football Club's Chief Executive Officer Emmanuel Musinguzi, the suspension that takes immediate effect will be used by the club management to investigate the circumstances that prevailed before, during and after Chetume's embarrassing 4-2 away loss to newcomers Kitara at the Masindi Municipal Stadium. In a four-stated match, Chetume completed the game with 9 men following a straight red card to goalkeeper Joel Mutakuwa in the 45th minute and Julius Ntambi's decision to voluntarily walk off the field of playing following a knockout towards the closing stage of the game. There are 9 matches that remain before the climax of the 2020-2021 season, and every game for them definitely means a cup finale, starting with the away contest against Maida at the King George IV Memorial Stadium in Tororo. TV Africa News, Kachanchu Mtabazi reporting.
Now, before we end our news bulletin today, let's take a recap of our top stories. Court rules people's government and people power slogans are legal. MPs task Kasaija on shilling 66 trillion debt burden. World Bank injects US dollars 100 million into troubled northern Mozambique. And in sports, Chetume suspends goalkeeper and defender over alleged match fixing. That was the news. Thank you for always keeping it TV Africa. Please do stay tuned to more programming coming your way.
This is Africa, and that was the news.